so that we have the rest of our evening to go home and party. My name is Shelley Westenberg, and I'm a member of the Dunbarton PTO. It has been the PTO's pleasure to host this event for the past, 45,000 years. I don't know how many years they've been doing it. But it's a great forum, great opportunity for you all to get to know some people you might have not recognized, or whose names you don't know. We're going to start. We're going to go in order on the list of candidates. And so our first candidate for selectman for 3 years is Mr. Ted Valyers. The way we're gonna work this, Ted, is that we're gonna have each person speak for a few minutes, then sit down. After everybody is finished, then there will be a question and answer period. So nobody feels that they're up here waiting to be grilled. If you have something to ask a candidate after everybody has spoken, then we'll do the questions that way, okay? Ted Valyers.
Great. My name is Ted Valyers, and I've been a selectman for 4 years. And one of the little anecdotes I thought of today was, when I was first elected as a selectman, I thought that being a selectman, I could make decisions. Well, come to find out, when you're a selectman, you have to work as a board. At least the majority of the board has to agree on any decision that's made. So after I'd been elected the first time, about a month or so after, I get a call on a late Friday morning. It's a member of the garden club. And they had ordered some mulch for the town common. But lo and behold, they found out that the road agent, Jeff Crosby, hadn't got enough. They needed an extra 3 yards. Could I call Jeff and ask him to go and get some more mulch? I saw no problem with that, because they were gonna be doing the mulching that weekend. So Jeff goes and gets the 3 yards, and drops them off. He drops the bill off at the town office, and that Thursday, when the selectmen do the checks, I was strictly admonished that I, as a selectman, had no authority to spend money. That any decision was made, it had to be done as a board. So, when I ran, I promised the voters that I would do everything I could to make sure that any money spent would be done wisely. And I feel I've done that for 4 years. A couple of years ago, I got upset because every year it seemed like the budget was being increased by $100,000. You look back, every year, we would spend $100,000 less than we had appropriated, but yet the budget went up another $100,000. So for you people that were there at that meeting, I got up and I spoke. And I thought that we should reduce the budget by $100,000. And people agreed with me. Last year, I believe I did the same thing, but not as forcefully, and it didn't pass. But every year, I've tried to make sure that what goes in the budget is something that is needed. And lo and behold, this year, everything pretty much that the department heads asked for, they got. But the budget only went up by $14,000. What happened? How come we can do everything we need to do by only increasing the budget by $14,000? For all these previous years, it was going up by $100,000. So I think I've kept my promise as far as trying to make sure that whatever money was spent wisely. Not only have we kept the budget low, but in the last 2 years, we have spent over $400,000 to improve our buildings and redo some of our roads. So it's not like I'm little Uncle Scrooge here saying no, 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 no all the time. I'm trying to look forward. So what is it the town is gonna need in the future, and how should we plan so we'll have some money set aside for those plans? And the reason that I push to have the town offices upgraded and the fire department upgraded was you can tell that in another 10, 15 years, those buildings are gonna be too small for this town. Already in the town office, we have 2 employees sharing a desk. It's not gonna be long before there's not gonna be enough room in the town office. So in the CIP, we started putting money aside to buy land, and in the future, we'll be able to hopefully build a new town office. Now, it's in a CIP, and it's shown as being funded, but we didn't fund it this year. And the reason was, we thought the taxes increased quite a bit last year, and we would try and give people a little bit of a breather room. Now, the way the budget is this year, and all of the warrant articles we have, the town portion of the tax rate would only go up by 8 cents. So I think we did a pretty good job. So, again, I haven't changed my mind in 4 years. Every time a spending item comes up, I try and balance a need versus a want. And I'm gonna continue doing that if I get reelected. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ted.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Mr. Robert Martell, otherwise known as Bob.
Well, for those of you that don't know me, I am Robert Martell. My wife is Paula. We've lived in this town 33 years, and I'll give you a little bit of background that I have. I've got 26 years in the construction industry as far as industrial, commercial construction. I also lobbied the state legislatures in Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont as a governmental affairs consultant / legislative liaison, which for most people would think I'm a lobbyist. So, and doing that, I got an extensive background as far as both federal and New Hampshire Department of Labor, hour and wage, and also workers' comp as far as New Hampshire's concerned, as to that end. Additionally, I sit on the New Hampshire Unemployment Advisory Council, and I sit on the New Hampshire Workforce Opportunity Investment Council. What I'm trying to bring to the town is transparency. Transparency being that, and I'll use a simple example. If there's a selectmen's meeting and you go and you click on the website for the selectmen's meeting, and they have an agenda, it'd be kind of nice to see what the agenda's about, so that you can weigh in and have some discussion about what may transpire that night before the selectmen make a decision. I think that's kind of simple to ask. The other thing is, when people come in with their emotions to a selectmen's meeting and have a concern, I think they need to be treated with respect, the utmost respect. You know, emotionally, they're charged, and it doesn't help us to look at it any differently and to address that that way. As far as the direction the town's going, I'm a fiscal responsible person. So I look at what needs to be spent on and what has to be done. I saw things that were done over the past few years that are getting done this year, thank goodness. Some of those would have been just paint several years ago. Today, they're paint and a little bit of window dressing. I really didn't think I was gonna run this year, to be real honest with you. There's a lot of people in this room that asked me to run within the 2 weeks time period, and my significant other looked at me and said to me on the Thursday night, just before it closed, you can't turn your back and walk away. and I said, I guess I can't. So I've decided to run this year because I'm being pushed to run, and I think I can make a difference, and I'm hoping that I can make that difference for you, and that's all I have to tell you.
Thanks, Bob. Next, though it is an uncontested race, Mr. J.R. Hole is here to talk to us about his run for town moderator.
So, I guess starting, what is the town moderator? We all know that Fred has done a fantastic job for years. The shoes I cannot fill. And apparently he said last year, I'm not running. And I guess no one took him seriously until we're in the middle of the filing period and someone says, hey, we need a candidate. So, I got a phone call and asked if I can swing by and possibly consider running. I stopped by Tuesday to talk to Linda, thought about it over the next couple of days. Friday I came back to file. It was never kind of on my bucket list. It wasn't something I desired to be the town moderator, but I know I can do the job because I understand how to be impartial about things. I know how to run town meetings. I know how to run organizations. I can keep the meeting going. I mean, fundamentally, the moderator does two things. He keeps the town meeting and the school board meetings, in this case, it's only the town meeting going, and then he makes sure that the voting is impartial and fair. And I think that is something that I can make sure happens. I made a strong request of Fred to say, hey, I don't even know how to do this job. I've never done it before. I never considered actually doing this job. As long as you're willing to mentor me, I'll gladly fill the role. We need someone to do it. But you've done such an outstanding job, I need to understand what you know. And he's offered to help me through the transition period, kind of as a mentoring role, which is why I was there all day, or almost all day, for the presidential primary, just to learn more about the process. So, that's about it. I'm happy to fill the need because we need someone to be the town moderator.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, we have a number of people who are here, but probably don't want to seek. It's uncontested. Janet Casey is running for the supervisor of the checklist for 6 years. Bless your heart. Brian Clark, is Brian here?
I think he's on vacation.
Okay, Judy Van Kalken is at this moment collecting our town taxes. Martha Wilson is the library trustee for 3 years. Martha, you're not here, I don't think, right? Tom Grollo, would you like to say a few words, Tom?
Sure.
Cemetery trustee for 3 years. Cemetery trustee,
Yep.
sorry.
Hi, I'm Tom Grillo. I'm running again for cemetery trustee, 3 years. Cemeteries are, pretty important here in Dunbarton. We have 3 that we take care of every day. And, the one over in the east side of town is probably the one, probably in the most need of some kind of maintenance now for erosion control, so we'll be addressing that this year. And then the one in Center Cemetery, we're looking at replacing the fence in that cemetery this year. And then the one down at Page's Corner has been pretty well taken care of. There really doesn't seem to be a big maintenance need there, other than having some of the old stones repaired and making sure that those are all in good shape. This past season, we, I forget the exact number, but it's somewhere over 100 stones were straightened and corrected. They were taken out of the ground, actually, and the bases were repaired. This coming season, we'll be addressing the broken stones that are laying on the ground. There's quite a few of them in the Center Cemetery. So that's what we're looking forward to doing this coming year for the next 3 years. It's an ongoing thing. The old cemeteries, of course, are the big maintenance items because they're old, and the stones, need repair. And we have a good contractor who does our mowing, who's, we're pretty pleased with. He's very careful. We haven't had a lot of issues with damage, to any of the stones from weed whacking or, moving lawnmowers through the cemetery, because that, of course, is the big danger. That's a very tight area. They're not necessarily straight rows. They're not necessarily at ground level. We did this past season through the Beckett Family Services. We had a group of volunteers, and I hope to do that again this coming summer. I don't know exactly how many people were. I think it was 6, and they bring a supervisor, and they were in mostly doing brush cleanup and also resetting the cornerstones. Cornerstones get shoved around from the the winter weather, and they push upward, of course, then they cause an issue with mowing. So those are the kind of things that we've been doing. Of course, the volunteers keep the cost of operating the cemetery pretty low, because it doesn't cost us anything if those folks come in there. So, looking forward to doing it for 3 more years. Appreciate everybody's support. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. 2 people are running for Ethics Committee member, Marcy Richmond. Marcy, are you here? And David Allen. And now on to our school board contest. First to speak is Clement T. Madden, otherwise known as Clem.
Clem, man. I live over on Putney Road with my wife and 3 kids, Vivian, Herbert, and Clifford. Clifford's the youngest at 2.5. Vivi's at about 9. I work in property management. I do a lot of varied things in that job. We manage residential apartments and commercial space. And we do a lot of different things, from budgeting to, residential relations, to capital improvements, to everything. If you have a house, we do it times 1 million times. So that's a good thing. I've been on the board for just under a year. I've attended a lot of board meetings in the past. I believe in the value of a good education. I think it's important for the kids of Dunbarton to have a solid foundation, especially here at the elementary school, because this is where it all starts. So past that, there's not much else to say, I guess, but thank you.
Jarrett Duncan, incumbent.
Great. Thanks. It's been 3 years already. I can't believe it. We were standing up here. I think that was the first PTO Meet the Candidates night, was 2013. So like Clem, I live on Putney Road, almost on the Bow Line. 2 children, both in the elementary school, 4th and 1st grade. Wife Elizabeth, speech therapist. I'm an attorney. I work in Manchester now, mostly in acquisitions. Prior to that was environmental law was my primary focus. Been on the board 3 years. Before that, spent a lot of time at the board meetings running up to the Bow vote. The last 3 years have been exhilarating and exhausting. We've had some very lengthy meetings, had a lot of hot issues. We've got one that's still going on that's been lasted 2 or 3 years now. So my main focus on the board is to, of course, promote the fiscal responsibility, but also to support the building and the education of the teachers within it. I think we've done a great job. I honestly have been to a lot of board meetings throughout the state. Tremendous group of people to work with. We lost Rainey this year due to a conflict. We gained Clem. Excellent to have Clem on the board, but everyone else, superior knowledge of everything, and looking forward to doing it again for another 3 years. Thanks.
And Mr. David W. Johnston. Mr. Johnston, are you here? Okay. David is running as a, so there's 1 seat and 3 people running. Okay, so, 2 seats and 3 people running. Math is not my strong suit. So, at this point, I would like to open the floor to anybody who has a question for any of the candidates. And if you're asked a question, please, I would ask that you come up here to answer your question. Thank you, makes it easier. Ann?
Well, I have a question for Tom.
Yep.
I'm your worst nightmare, I know. When you say you're replacing the fence, you mean the section of the fence between the town office and the McCubbins property, correct? Or-
From that side of the cemetery, but also on the other side. That one on the far side, the north side of the cemetery, that one also.
Oh, I didn't even know there was one there.
Amazing.
Just one wall.
Yeah, no, it's not, there is a fence there. The house along that side has a bunch of wood and stuff, firewood stacked up there. There are a couple of trees, but it runs from 13 back, I think between the 2 fences, if I remember correctly, there's somewhere around 300 feet of fence.
Okay, and can you tell me a little bit about when you mentioned gates were gonna be put up, locked gates?
Mhm.
Are those just for winter time, or are they year round, and are they
No,
going
no.
to be installed?
Yep, they'll be installed sometime this spring, I don't know, have a date yet.
Okay.
They'll be closed for the winter. When we close the cemetery, they'll be closed.
Will there be any access for people who'd like to walk through the
Yep.
cemetery?
On the side of the building where well, actually, there's 2 places, I think. There's one at the front of where the town office building is. There's an opening there. And then there's, there'll be an opening down where, McCubbin's, cause that fence, that gate and fence won't meet, there'll be a space there to walk through. Yeah, it wouldn't be proper to close off the cemetery from foot traffic, it's just we're trying to keep the cars out.
Okay.
Cause we've had issues in the past with cars getting in and when the ground is soft and causing issues with the roadways that we then need to fix. So that's the intention there.
Okay, great, thank you.
That answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
I got
Yeah,
a question for you, Tom. Historical Dunbarton, why are we doing vinyl fences and vinyl gates?
Well, that's been brought up a couple times recently, Dawn, and it's, I have a meeting tonight at 7:30, and it's, on the list of things to talk about. You know, in the past, I don't know what the practice was in the past, I know there's vinyl over in, the East Cemetery, and that was before my time, so I don't know how that decision got to be. And it's maintenance free, you know, minimal maintenance, and I think that's what was driving, that, you know, choice toward vinyl. Doesn't have to be, and folks have, you know, expressed their concern, the Zellas have, a few other folks have, so, you know, but if people don't share their concerns and their ideas, you know, we don't know, we're doing what we think is best, and, you know, trying to put something that's maintenance-free and long-lasting for the town. But, you know, in the center of town, I get it, it's, you know, historical, so, you know, to me, it's an easy thing, but again, I'm glad we're getting the input from folks, letting us know what they want. Okay, thank you.
Any questions?
I have a question, I have questions for Bob. We're seeing how I may be working with him on the board, I have a couple of things, if he doesn't mind, just because I'm curious, Bob. Bob attends a lot of the select board meetings, and he's been really good. He's helped us with some input on the roof of the library building, which unfortunately hasn't gone as well as we would have liked, but it's been a problem, but hopefully we'll have that taken care of quickly here. But in the profile, the Dunbarton profile, one of the big things that came from that was people want a way to communicate, because we don't have a newspaper, we don't have, you know, those kind of things here in town. It's been suggested, because we had looked at some other web providers other than the one we currently have, and some of those web providers offer drop-down links so that you as a citizen can, if you have an interest in the selectmen or the school board or whatever that committee is, there's drop-downs and you go in and sign up for email blast. So that's one thing that the current website doesn't offer. The two websites that we looked at, the two web providers, one was around $5,000 and the other one was a little bit less money. And I know that when we talked about that in meetings, Bob expressed some concern about, you know, spending that kind of money for the website update. But my question is, what would you say to the folks in, you know, that participated in that profile and want this communication, and we have a way through technology to provide it? And there's gonna be some cost, and maybe it's not $5,000, because we are talking with our current provider to find out what he can do for us. But what would you offer to the folks here in town for that? What would, you know, what would your suggestion be?
Well, you just hit the nail on the head, is you're talking to people right now that are bringing the cost down.
Well, we
If you
hope we
bring-
are.
And if
We
you
haven't
can
seen
bring
it
the
often.
cost down,
Yeah.
is one thing, but at the cost that the person that made the presentation that evening,
Yeah, you were there.
yeah, that said that our site was good,
Yep.
that he could provide a few bells and whistles.
Right.
I thought that, I think it was what, $6,700?
I think, yeah, it was around that.
$6,700
And then-
for the bells and
Right,
whistles
yep.
is, I think we should be looking around to see if we can find something that costs a little
Yeah,
less.
and that's what we're doing, and that's why we're waiting for an offer or a proposal from Dan Troy on that at the moment. And I don't know if it's gonna be any less, but I guess the question isn't so much the money, but if we can't do it through a website, what other suggestion would you have to provide that link for
Well,
communication?
you know, there's another thing that they use, and it's called a warrant article.
Oh, for funding? Yeah, no, I
You know,
understand
so
that.
that's the other, and then if everybody there, or most of the people there vote for that warrant article, then whether or
It's up
not
to the
we
vote.
agree with it,
Yep.
it should be part and parcel to for what it is.
All right, well, hopefully we can do it through technology, knowing what specs that we're paying.
Hopefully you can get it down so it's cheap
Well, we'd like
enough
to,
that-
yeah, that's the
Okay.
plan, I'm hoping to see that.
So sit down, I have a question for you, Bob, and actually for Ted too.
Oh.
And I'll ask a question. The link to the videotaping that's currently being done now for the selectmen's meetings. We've asked for it, there is a warrant article, but as the selectmen have said at many meetings, that, you know, you don't have to abide by a majority vote, it's only advisory. So I guess my question to both of you is, something that costs no money and isn't harmful, and it's free, and has volunteer input, if the majority votes for it, how do you feel about it?
Well, I'll give you my perspective. If the body there votes for something, it behooves us not to go forward with what they voted for.
What?
Other way around.
Do the other way around.
You would be in favor or
I
not?
You
mean,
would be in favor of, because you believe in the majority, what
I
majority wants.
believe that, you know, whatever's voted on at that town meeting, and that's why I say it behooves us, we should go forward with whatever they decide at the town meeting.
Okay.
Ted,
And-
how do you feel about that?
Ted.
Can we
Here,
both-
have a seat.
Yeah.
When you came to the select board with your request, I was all for it. When you came to the select board and asked that,
that isn't the question. The
no,
question,
but you asked at the select meeting, you asked if we could put a link.
Ted, I'm asking a question. If there is a vote on something on the floor at town meeting, and the majority wants something, it could be this issue, it could be something else. If it is not harmful, just because you agree with it, would you say no?
Well, why would I say no when I already said yes? If, especially,
Okay, all right, so
especially
at the
at
selectmen's
town
meetings-
meeting, the overwhelming majority of people said yes, we think it's a
Okay.
good idea.
All right.
I already agreed with
All right,
it.
that's-
The only problem we had was we checked with the lawyer, and they said there are a few things that we have to do before we start putting it on our website. And I forget exactly, Tom's the one that checked with the lawyer, and it has to do with disclaimers and so forth. But I'm all for it. I mean, if people go to the website and are willing to sit there for 3 hours and watch the video, I'm all for it. The more informed the people in Dunbarton are, the better the town will be. I mean, I remember when I ran 4 years ago, I said I was gonna look for some way that we could inform the citizens more than we were. And at that time, I'm not IT guy. I thought at that time maybe we could start some kind of newsletter or something like that, but that didn't go too far. But now we're coming up, and we've talked about putting things on the website.
It isn't just that question. My question to both of you is, because I've been at some of the selectmen's meetings, or even the ones that are taped or not taped, and the warrant articles will come up repeatedly. The board would say as a whole that we don't have to abide by anything that's a majority vote on a warrant article, because RSAs say we can hide behind them and we can still say no to you.
But I don't understand that, that's the RSA. The RSA said, not only the town, but the selectmen. It tells us exactly what we can do and what we can't do. It tells the citizens of a town what they can do and they can't do.
Okay, you're not understanding my question.
I'm understanding your question, is,
No.
your question was, if the town votes in favor of the warrant article,
A warrant article. A warrant article. It could be,
Not that
not
particular-
that
oh, I
one.
thought you were talking about,
No,
well,
I-
that's what
I
you would.
said, and I said afterwards, any warrant article that goes before the population, and the population says yes, if the three of you have a prejudice against it, because I've heard Brian say, these are just advisory votes, we don't have, what you vote on is not binding on us. I've heard it enough times to be scared, not just on this issue, but on a lot of issues.
Well, I'm not sure about a lot of issues.
JR is gonna jump in,
If I
then
may ask a
Francis
question,
is gonna.
is there an RSA quoted? Because that's the first time I've ever heard of someone doing that, and that really concerns me. So
It's
I'd like to go look at the statute.
I wasn't given the RSA, but
Okay.
it was repeated several times in the
Okay.
course of one meeting, and underneath
I would have to look at the minutes.
I will go
It's
look for
probably on
that,
video.
yes. No,
Francis,
thank you.
Yeah,
Francis.
this is for Bob. You know, we're all really concerned about our taxes going up so high this year, and the tendency is to blame the incumbent selectmen for that. When in actuality, about, what, 18 or 19% is actually the town part of the budget. The whole rest of our budget, 75, 80%, came from the school, local school, state, county taxes. If you had been a selectman this past year, how would you have worked to prevent those tax increases? And how are you, if elected, how would you, going forward, try and stop those things when the selectmen has such a tiny portion in the percent of taxes that were paid?
Well, number one is, if you're looking at how I would have done it last year, I probably wouldn't have looked at it as closely as I would when I start to read the warrant articles that have gone through that we passed last year. Cause I wasn't paying attention to it then, you know, it wasn't on my perspective, but going forward with, whatever we're gonna consider, which, a lot of it that comes out from the different department heads.
Right.
Capital reserve for the fire department, may want 60,000, 50,000, 40,000, whatever it is. Then you have, capital reserve, we'll say for the extension of some road in town. So I guess what we have to do is look at it as closely as we can, make sure that the departments are asking for monies that aren't in excess of what they need. You know, unfortunately, with the fire department, we're looking at a truck down the road though, that is gonna be lend-lease or however they decide to do it at the time, so, I would just be looking at the numbers that are coming through and trying to see if we can pare some of that back, if we can, and do the best we can, but as far as fiscal responsibility towards that is, at the same time, there are some of those things that we need to plug monies into, which, may not be the Public Works Department. Public Works Department may have monies of their own, but we have a transfer station that may need some improvements there, and you have the fire department. I don't know what the police department, what their initial next step is gonna be next year. I don't know what they're looking for, but all I can say is that we're gonna look at the numbers if I'm elected. We look at the numbers and see how close to coming to within what they need, to get things done.
So basically what the current selectmen have been doing the past couple of
Is-
years,
is-
a level funded
Is
type
kind
budget
of,
if possible.
exactly, trying to level fund if we can. I mean, there's gonna be some places that, I don't know as far as, like I said, the fire department, you have the police department, and you have, the transfer station that I think are gonna need some kind of monies somewhere down the road. The police department may be as much as, they may have to do some extra patrolling, you know, I mean, we're in this period where we've got all of these opioid things that are happening, and I think it's happening throughout the different communities where you're gonna have that kind of problem, and I don't know if we're gonna have to plug money into that spot. So, trying to look at things the same way as they're looking at them now, and trying to control the cost as much as we can, and hopefully we can keep things on the same level as this year. They say if they pass all the warrant articles, it's 8 cents over last year. That's not bad, you know, it's when you add everything else into it.
Thank you. Anybody questions? Mike?
I'd like to ask both selectmen candidates to maybe expand on their vision for the town, setting aside budget issues for the moment. Talk about infrastructure, public safety, municipal services, environmental. other things other than just budget for the moment, longer term.
Ted, why don't you?
Well, I'm not quite sure I understand the question, but longer term, like I mentioned, we've been looking at our building. And what we did for the last 4 years, we tried to stabilize it, more or less. We put in the town offices, we put a new furnace in, we insulated, we put vapor barriers in the basement, we painted the building. We're hoping this will extend the useful life of the building for at least another 10 to 15 years. We did the same thing with the fire department. When I went in that fire department, I remember the first time I went in that fire department, I was appalled. That building was moved from Clough State Park 60 years ago, and it was already a used building, and nothing had been done to it. It was like a time capsule. It was like when I was 10 years old and I went to a friend's house that was 100 years old. I mean, everything was so outdated, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that they were still using that building for our fire department. They were out of room. So we spent $75,000 to add office space, remodel their meeting space, remodel their bathroom. Hopefully that building will last us another 10 to 15 years. So that's kind of my vision as far as looking forward, what do we need to do so that we don't all of a sudden wake up one day and say, hey, look, we need a new office building. Where are we gonna get that in the next couple of years? Those things have to be planned for. We have to start looking for land, which is not that common in Dunbarton anymore, not something that we would be able to use for the town. So that's what I'm looking at. I don't know if that answers your question.
That's what your vision is, yeah.
Okay,
Sure.
thanks.
Well, one of the things we need to do is, some of the roads do need improving. And I don't know if we're gonna get any extra monies from the state of New Hampshire to pump into some of that, but we have a bridge on Ray Road that should be in there right now, to be honest. So that's one of the things that we could address. The environmental issue, if you take a look at Gorham Pond, and even though it's a small amount of money that they're looking for, and they're gonna get some of that money replaced by the state, and you spend it down, that takes care of an issue there that won't spread into another pond such as Purgatory Pond, Kimball's Pond, Long Pond, so that takes care of that issue there. And as far as where the town's going in the future with buildings, they're talking about, I guess, building a building that consolidates the fire department and the police department. I believe the town halls or whatever, the town hall at the same time. I think if we plan ahead, so we can put some monies aside to have something, to build something like that, could be one thing that we could do. However, in the meantime, we have what we have, and I guess, we need to travel in that direction. I don't know if that answers any of your questions.
Oh, that's one more question again for both of the candidates. Has anybody done anything, it's been at least 20 years that I know of, before we had a study of, a commercial, I won't say commercial zone, but a commercial study about what we can do to get some non-residential people in here to pay taxes. I don't wanna go through the whole chicken, turkey, bird farm thing, but, but does anybody have any ideas of any way and any plans on the horizon for maybe getting a study going again?
If you look around at this town, which is rural, and it doesn't allow, I think, it doesn't allow for that type of expansion. I mean, if you're gonna see a Dunkin' Donuts, where would you see it next? There's, it just doesn't seem to be conducive to that type of thing, as far as commercial, developers or contractors or even small businesses. The businesses that are in town are so small as they are, that I don't see where you get an impact to create that kind of money.
Yeah, to answer your question, I think you have to go to the master plan, which was, done like 20 years ago, updated about 10 years ago, and there was a very definite answer that people don't want commercial, entities in the town. It's a bedroom community, and that's what they want it to stay as. They don't want commercial entities coming into town, so that's the answer. I mean, if everybody on the master, if the majority of people on the master plan voted against it, why would the selectmen start looking to bring in commercial properties?
Well, sometimes thinking out of the box, I didn't know if anything new had developed.
No.
With high tech now, there's ways to bring commercial income in
But
without developing vast amounts of
JR?
land.
any commercial entity can come into town. All they have to do is either get a special exception, or what is the other thing? A variance or a special exception. But the way the town is set up right now with their zoning, you can build a commercial property anywheres in town.
Okay, JR, you have,
I guess within the master plan and the current constraints within building and zoning, is there any way to do professional offices? This kind of goes to your comment, right?
Yeah.
Professional offices can blend very well into this rural countryside, but you can have a CPA, you can have an attorney, you can have an engineer, whatever, right? And the only difference may be a small sign out front. I don't know what the rules are, I've never looked at it, but there could be a way to bring in, additional value in terms of a professional design firm who renovates a barn and turns it into an outfit. I've seen one in Hollis, do a great job.
Any professional entity can, like, look on Page's Corner, you have a dental
Yes, exactly,
office.
Right.
yes,
I mean, all they needed to do was get a special
exception.
special exception.
I guess my question for the two candidates for selectmen is, how do we encourage that? Because that has, the dentist is a great example, where we can bring in a business, it still fits in, it doesn't add to the traffic, but it helps reduce the cost, the tax, or increase the tax base, reducing the taxes, and it doesn't change our town.
Well, again, the last two master plans that were done, people expressed their opinion that they didn't want commercial properties in Dunbarton. Now, they're gonna start updating the master plan again this year. And part of that is they send out a questionnaire to all the residents. One of the questionnaires, if I'm not mistaken, is,
Do you want commercial?
do you want commercial zoning?
And when
Do you
it will
want,
be at a town meeting?
do you wanna see commercial entities coming into Dunbar? You know, it's been 10 years, maybe people have changed their mind, but until that's updated, I don't think you're gonna see the selectmen going out and trying to bring in commercial.
Okay. I guess,
I was
yes,
gonna
go
answer
ahead,
you.
go answer, and then I have a follow-up for both.
All right, well, I was just gonna say, most of the places that would build commercially in town, that would do it under a structure, we'll say, a rural or, agricultural type building, where you could have, different offices or, attorneys' offices or whatever, would build right now, if they could here, if they wanted to here. But I don't think that, the town itself is conducive for that type of thing. How did you get Capital Well built? Quite a while ago, is when he built.
I guess a follow-up for both of you, and I don't know when this survey goes out, there's a difference in my mind between commercial and professional. And if we ask the question right, allowing an exemption or encouraging exemption for professional offices, which are your dentists, your doctors, your whatever, right, the list goes on. You may be able to encourage some of that to go in without transforming the community in a very positive way. And those are businesses that then pay property taxes and other things into the town.
Was the question broken down between professional
But just to
and
answer
commercial?
you,
I think so.
that would take the person that's working over in the office, the administrative person, to get them involved with looking at pieces of property in town, to do that type of thing.
So a similar question, I guess, along the same lines as not commercial, but what about agriculture? I looked around some of the other towns like Goffstown, just on 13 they have a ton of cow farm and stuff. And one of the things that I liked about the environment when I moved here was you know, there was a farm less than a mile from my house. And it seems like a lot of the farms are disappearing in town. I don't know, as people age or whatever it might be. Is there something we can do to maybe bring farming back into Dunbarton?
We just lost our last farm, Stone Farm.
Yeah. So the question is, how can we maybe reverse that loss and bring it back?
But that's under a that's gonna be under a
Well, that is,
conservation easement, so we're not losing.
for the record, Stone Farm can continue to be operated as a farm forever and ever. Conservation easement has nothing to do with that.
Any responses from?
Yeah, I'm trying to think, I mean, to get somebody to come into Dunbarton and start a farm, I mean, to begin with, they have to find the land, which would probably be prohibitive in Dunbarton to buy enough land to farm for a living. So, I mean, it's not that we're against it, I mean, we've had plenty of horse barns built in the last few years. But I mean, I don't see how the selectmen can induce somebody to start a farm in, not only Dunbarton, anywhere.
I think he's asking
I
if
mean,
we're
it's a big
discouraging of
capital
it.
investment unless you've inherited a sizable chunk of property. I mean, farming is one of the hardest things you can do today.
Well, I was just gonna say, the difference is, you can't get someone to come in and decide to build a farm unless you get a Giovanni that wants to come in. And then the minute they come in and they wanna build, then you may have people that are gonna raise the hackles because they wanna build a farm that size there. So, I mean, it is what it is. If you move into this town and you wanna raise chickens or goats or whatever, you have that ability to do that. I think you're finding more people are coming here to have a home, to travel somewhere else to work, to come back home and have a home. And if they raise a couple of chickens, you're kinda lucky that you're getting that kind of output.